This is Living Healthy with Jackie Bell, the show with the information on health that you need to know from people you can trust. Brought to you by The Woman in You.
Hi, my name is Jackie Bell. Welcome to Living Healthy. Tonight we're going to talk about holistic pet care, and we've invited Dolores Caton, owner of Down to Earth Natural Foods for Humans and Pets in New Bedford. Dolores is well known for her knowledge in holistic pet care, her knowledge in how to take care of your animal, feeding them well, nutritiously, and keeping them from getting sick with holistic medicine, homeopathic remedies, and natural foods. Dolores, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's start with talking about pet food and what we're up against in the supermarkets, buying pet food for our pets and trying to keep them healthy with nutritious pet food.
Well, I think, Jackie, that there's a huge correlation these days between what people are going through, what their diets are, and how they're trying to improve them. And surprisingly, a number of years ago, it dawned on me. I mean, I still say lights keep coming on over my head, even here, that what we're eating, we started the store because we felt that we wanted to improve our lives and the lives of people. Over time, we discovered that not only do we need to improve the lives and the health and nutrition of people, we need to do it with animals too, because they were suffering and are suffering right now the same problems. They're overweight, they're allergic, they're sick, they have many of the same diseases that we do. I mean, diabetes is very common in dogs and cats these days. Seizure, I mean, the list is endless. Yes, heart, everything, arthritis. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have developed the same problems that we have. And a large proportion of the reason for that is their diet. So, I mean, if you start with the diet, if somebody comes in the door in the store and asks me, you know, for some help with their animal, number one, the first thing I make sure they know is that I'm not a vet, by no stretch of the imagination. Everything I've learned through either reading, listening, taking care of my own animals, and my vets, and I do use a holistic vet in Vermont. And one of the first things I do say is, what does your dog or cat eat? And very sadly, very often it's something that's really not too great. There are some pretty bad foods out there. I actually had one woman come in with a dog the dog was diabetic and was quite overweight. She had the dog outside, of course. And when I asked her what she fed the dog, her answer was bologna and cheese.
What should a pet owner look for in the food? It's maybe the first two ingredients.
Okay, the first two ingredients for an animal should be meat.
Okay.
And not byproducts, but meat itself. Okay. And in this little pile of stuff that I have here, one of the things I have is a copy of a page from the Merck Veterinary Manual that actually states that dogs and cats have no nutritional need for carbohydrates.
Right.
That doesn't mean they can't have some, but they don't need them. There's a difference between having something you don't need and, you know, not getting something you do need. Well, they don't need it, and the carbs can be a big problem. Now, when you're reading, for instance, a pet food label, mm-hmm. Usually the first one or two ingredients are 50% of the label. So those two ingredients should be meat of some sort, and it should name the meat, not just say meat, it should name the meat. But what the pet food companies do, and a lot of people don't know this, I just told this to a woman the other day and she was quite amazed because she gave me a brand name, and I have a file where I've got a lot of these in the file. So I pulled that out and I said, well, let's read it together. The first ingredient was meat, and that was good. But the next three were oats in a different form. One was whole oats, the other was ground oats, and then the other was oat bran. That's called, in the pet food industry, that's called splitting a product. So they split it into three different types, because if they only said oats, that on the label would move up and be in front of the meat.
Oh, I see.
See, so And she was astounded. And I said, you know, there are worse foods than this one that you're showing me, but they are deceiving you in a way because you are getting 50% grain.
What are some ingredients in dog food or cat food that we really should stay away from that are very harmful to our pets?
Okay, and again, not naming names. You don't want preservatives. You don't need them because they can use vitamin E, rosemary. There are various natural alternatives for keeping them fresh. You don't want any sugar.
And would it say sugar, or would there be
the particular
something
one that
else in
I'm
there?
thinking of has 4 preservatives, no, 3 preservatives, 4 dyes, so that the food is different colors.
Right.
Now, the dogs don't see, the animals don't see the colors because they're colorblind. So
Right.
the colors are for you and me. So that when we open this bag or whatever, it looks pretty and it looks inviting.
Right.
It's not just a little brown thing
Right.
sitting there. So they don't need the color, they don't need the dyes. This particular food has 4 of them, I believe. It's marketing.
Right.
They market this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch the commercials and it's you know, that's how we choose a lot of these
Right.
things.
Absolutely.
So the dyes, the preservatives, the sugars, the grains. I believe that dogs don't need grains.
Right. I know for sure that people who are training their dogs for dog sledding teams and so forth, they would never feed their dogs
Right,
grains.
right.
And that's not part of a natural part of a
Right.
dog's diet. Neither is grain for a cat.
Well, dogs are carnivores.
Yes, so are cats.
And cats are obligate carnivores. They must have meat.
Yeah.
No one must ever dream of feeding a cat, say, a vegetarian diet, because
Right.
you're going to create all kinds of problems
Okay.
with that cat. But the carnivore thing, it's like I throw this out to any people out there who own a pug. Pug, when I like to ask this question, is that what dog do you think is the closest one to the wolf? Now, they've done this scientifically. DNA-wise, the pug and the wolf are almost identical.
That's so funny.
And when I see a person with a pug, I said, do you know that you're how closely related to the wolf your dog is? And they get all excited about it because, I mean, what looks less like a wolf than a pug? You know, everybody picks Husky, Shepherd, you know, the Malamute,
Yeah.
all the northern breeds.
Yeah.
It's the little pug. So even that little pug needs a meat-based diet.
So, you know, we're talking about ingredients to make sure are not in your dog's or cat's foods. What about foods that we might hand to our dogs or cats that would actually be poison? They're not to us, but, you know, out of, you know...
Yeah, there is a list of
familiarity,
those
we would
things.
give
I
it to our
mean,
dogs.
most people these days, hopefully most people know we don't do chocolate with dogs. And we did have a little skipper key in the family. When we were cooking in the kitchen for the store, we had a box of chocolate chips. And she got in the box. And she ate way too much chocolate chips. Now, it's not just funny, it's life-threatening. In this case, we knew it was just her, so we called the poison control or the vet. We made several calls, and they said, well, she needs to throw it up because she would, you know, it would affect her heart rate
So the
because of the
chocolate is
caffeine
not good.
and the
What else?
theobromine.
What else about it?
Chocolate, macadamia nuts, raisins. Now, years ago, I actually did raisins, and you think, oh, healthy little treat.
Yeah, right.
You know, and they still haven't figured out why, but feeding a dog raisins can cause liver problems. And dogs that have eaten, you know, the 1-pound boxes, even a large dog, if it ate a good portion of that, you could possibly lose that dog. But they don't know why. And it's not necessarily because they're sprayed or anything, because that would still be the problem,
Right.
even if they were organic. Raisin, that includes grapes, the macadamia nuts, like I said. There's a new one, and I just recently read this. I wasn't aware of it. Avocado is a no-no.
And
But-
that's for dogs or both dogs and cats?
And cats, well, I wouldn't, you know, cats are in some cases not as prone, but, and of course cats are a little choosier too. They're, you know, because they're boss of the world, so they're a little choosier. But there's one other one, and then that's the xylitol that I showed you previously.
Right.
Xylitol is a sweetener in things like, a lot of people don't know what it is, but as soon as you say Trident chewing gum or Orbit or any of those, That's the sweetener in there, but it's also used in a lot of other baked goods, especially for diabetics. Absolutely, perfectly, 100% safe for people because it doesn't affect their blood sugar. Dogs, it's just the opposite they've found, and cats too, but of course cats don't run around eating. What it does is it drops their blood sugar where they can actually have seizures, and it affects their liver too. Now, this is another incident that we had. It seems we have to learn so many things the hard way. My granddaughter called me one day. I was on my way to the store, and she called. She 20-year-old granddaughter, not a little one, and she said, "Grandma, Glenn just got in my backpack and ate a bunch of gum. I'm afraid his intestines will get blocked." So I said, "Lindsay, what kind of gum?" "It's Trident." I said, "Forget blockage." I said, "We need to get him to the vet because if he did eat it, we need to get it out of him." We had to take 2 other dogs too because we didn't know if they had eaten any. So 3 dogs went to the vet. 3 dogs spent the day there. They were given an emetic to make them throw up. The other 2 had none. He had 12 pieces in his stomach, wrappers and all, and they were taken out. Now, we had to take him back a couple of days later for blood work to check his liver. Because there is a time frame. If you don't do this quickly, you could be in trouble. Now, this other little dog in the family, you'd think we'd know better, but I told my niece down in Philadelphia, she has a little Pom, about this. I said, xylitol, be careful. They left the dog in the car, the weather was okay, and they had a package of Orbit in the thing on the side of the door. The dog got it, took him to the vet. That dog spent 3 days at the vet. They could not get his blood sugar back up. And eventually they did, but they had to keep him there. So it is a serious thing.
What other foods would be?
And actually, we sell xylitol. You can buy it in a box and use it as a substitute sugar. And no, it's in everything. It's in muffins, cake, anything that would be sweetened for people that are worried about their sugar intake.
Okay.
So, and again, larger dog, small amount, not quite as serious. Smaller dog, larger amount. But in any case, I would just try to, steer clear of it.
Let's move on to the topic of vaccinations, which,
that's
even by law, we have to vaccinate for certain things, and then other things are not mandatory, but we usually do them annually or biannually. So tell us about vaccinations and what you know about them, what could be dangerous about vaccinations for our pets, and what we could do instead.
Well, the information that I have on vaccinations, aside from books, and I have over 300 books, not on vaccinations, in general about animals, and I have read them all, and a lot of them, like the one that I've got here, I use as references. My files on vaccination, because I keep files on all this, literally, the paperwork I have on the information about vaccinations for animals and pets, I literally have probably at least that much of various things, and maybe more. There are a couple of incidents that, it's been 28 vet schools in this country have changed their vaccination protocol. And for some reason, it doesn't always seem to be getting down to your local vet, that they do not need to vaccinate every year. Now, it's one thing if you do vaccinate and it's not causing any harm, then maybe you've only wasted time and money. But they have found that over-vaccination is causing problems. It is causing things like cancer.
So what vaccinations are we talking about?
Well, I mean, the only one required by law is rabies.
That's right.
And in Massachusetts, that is every 3 years. You start out, you get 2 in 1 year, and then that second one that you get in that first year is good for 3, it's good for 3, et cetera,
Is the rabies vaccination harmful to the animal, do you think?
It can be, and they're even suggesting that, in fact, right now there's a rabies challenge fund going on. Dr. Jean Dodds, she owns a blood bank out in California for animals. It's called Hemopet. She rescues greyhounds, and the greyhounds have, 20% of them have universal blood. So they donate blood to her blood bank. And they're rehabbed and made healthy, and then they're adopted. But she and Dr. Ronald Schultz from the University of Wisconsin are doing a 5- and 7-year rabies challenge study to prove that you don't need to vaccinate for rabies, not even every 3 years. They're going to prove that 5 would be plenty, 7, eventually they'll prove that 7 will be plenty, and then possibly just once in the animal's life.
Has the rabies vaccine proved to be harmful to
Oh yes,
pets?
in cats there's actually a rabies-induced sarcoma cancer.
Is there a way to, maybe a homeopathic remedy or something that, so if you did take your cat in to be vaccinated, but for rabies, that then you could help their immune system and so forth with a homeopathic remedy?
Yes, the homeopathic remedy, Thuja, Thuja,
Okay.
is helpful for that. In fact, when I did get one of my dogs vaccinated at my holistic vets, I don't go there very often because he's way up in Vermont. It's like 5 hours away. But I was there for other reasons, and he vaccinated my big guy, my biggest dog. And he immediately gave him a dose of Thuja,
Okay.
which would be nice, if all the vets did that. But maybe someday. I don't know if I'll get to see that.
What other vaccinations do the dogs and cats need that are really
Well,
common?
what they're recommending, the holistic vets and the schools and everything, are pretty much the distemper, parvo, and there are a couple of others. I don't know if the adenovirus. They have, how they have the different letters.
Yeah.
But they're recommending those as puppies, and then a booster shot within a year, and then after that, really not necessary and
Okay.
could be harmful.
All right. So what could a person do homeopathically or using natural remedies instead? Maybe putting things in their food or giving them a natural remedy?
Well, I think if you've got them pretty healthy, you probably wouldn't need to do anything. I mean, if you've got their immune system up to par with the best food you can possibly do, and going back to the food thing, which is kind of connected to this in a way, I have 4 dogs and they're all on the raw food diet. And I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but one of my dogs, he's 8.5. He's been on raw food since he was 3 weeks old. Because I took in the litter and the mom, wasn't going to keep any. I said, no, I can't, no, you're not staying with me. But eventually this one, everybody else got homes and he stayed. But I had put them all on raw food and he stayed on it and he's been on it ever since. And he's in great shape. 90 pounds. He looks like a Great Dane boxer mix. This big guy. Chance is his name.
If he's on raw foods, raw food diet. Do you actually buy raw meat for him, or what do you?
No,
what do you mean by
he eats
raw
what
food?
I sell.
So is that
There
a
are
can?
companies out there now. No, it's a frozen tube.
Okay.
And I mean, when I first started, that didn't exist. When I first learned about the raw food, and then of course this is America. If there's a need, let's make it. Let's invent it. And so the food company that I buy from is in Avon, Connecticut. They're a people food company, meat company, and they got into the animal food thing. So everything that they sell is human grade. It's not the dregs of anything. One of the reasons I like doing it, like I feel the best types of diets, like number 1 would be raw. Not everybody can do it, wants to do it, understands it, believes in it. Second best would be cooking, which is actually harder than raw because you have to cook it. Cooking your food. And then would be canned. And my last choice form would be kibble. The only good thing I can say about kibble as a form of food is that it's easy. Open the bag, scoop it out. Some people do a variety of all those things. And then underneath that invisible list of forms, you could put the various companies, which one,
Right.
which are good.
Because there's even kibble that is just meat. That's just
well, the
fish
kibble,
and
like
non-grain.
there's kibble that's grain-free and is high protein. Those are my first choices for kibble. And there are several companies out there now that, that do that. In fact, the kibble that I have is, I think the cat's kibble is 52% protein. And going on the protein thing, I also have a paper in all this little pile here too that as your dog or cat gets older, the theory used to be that you reduce the amount of protein in their diet because people are afraid of that. They think the kidneys are going to have a problem. Well, one of the large pet food companies, for some reason they think I'm a vet, so I get this mail from them. And I thought, oh, this is cool. And they are now stating that older pets need more protein, not less. So, but that's going to take a while to reverse too.
Yeah.
Just like the less vaccinations, all of these things don't happen overnight because people are, and sad to say, it's like the vets. I mean, they get very little training in nutrition.
Yeah. And so, as more and more people get food allergies and environmental allergies because of poor diet and poor digestion and so forth, do you find that with the pets as well, that they suffer from allergies?
The allergies in pets, and especially dogs, again, even more so than cats, is at epidemic proportions.
And what are signs that a dog has allergies?
The first thing that people will notice, or their major complaint, is scratching, itching. And very often it's the ears. Not always. Sometimes it's the flank, or they're chewing their paws.
Is there usually skin rash or loss of hair?
That can be. It depends on what type of allergy. Like one of the dogs I have, the Springer Spaniel, hers was. They don't necessarily call it an allergy. It's more like eczema. They call it atopic dermatitis, which is basically eczema, the same as people. She was quite a struggle. Got her through that, and she's like, I never use the word cured, but she is like 90% better. When spring comes along, say if their immune system is messed up or their digestive tract, they go together. I mean, you can't have a sound immune system without a sound digestive tract.
Right.
And interestingly, a study was being done a number of years ago as to whether dogs actually had the digestive enzymes to digest carbohydrates. They didn't know if they were born with them, or if they weren't born with them, if they developed them after we humans started feeding them carbohydrates. I never got the results of that study because the next month's magazine, I never got it. So, but it's my theory that a lot of the dogs don't develop the enzymes. If that's the way it works, they don't develop it and then eventually end up with allergies. Now, if you couple that with, wrong food that they're not digesting, a lot of grains, throw in a whole mess of antibiotics,
right?
Because they've got itchy problems. They go to the doctor with itchy ears, so they get cortisone, antibiotics. The antibiotics screw up their intestinal tract even more, so now they're even worse off because their immune system is fighting this. So I'm a big proponent also of probiotics for animals, even the cats. And that helps fight this problem.
And what is a probiotic, just to make sure that we're all on the same page?
The probiotic is what acidophilus, yogurt.
So it's like natural flora that is found in a healthy intestinal tract.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, you said it right. You said it better than I did. But yeah, because that's missing. And when I talk about that to people, I do not suggest that they give their animals yogurt. Most dogs and cats don't deal well with dairy products. And the amount of the probiotic in the yogurt would never equal, say, a capsule of my atopic dermatitis dog here. She actually gets 4 adult capsules a day because her intestinal tract, I'm sure, was so screwed up that I don't think it will ever be like 100% better, And then some of the things that we were going to talk about, if you add to that list, like my little fuzzy facts here, if you add to that list the flea and tick products.
Right, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because most of us are running to the vet for Frontline or
Advantage,
anything
or else you get it at the store. You get the different ones. Those are serious poisons.
And how do they affect the animals? Do they affect the nervous system?
Well, that's how they work.
Yeah.
I mean, they are nerve chemicals.
Okay.
And yes, they do. And I did put it on one of my dogs a few years ago, and that I had never done before. We had a flea problem, and I was having a tough time fighting it, even naturally. I mean, if it gets out of hand, we all know that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I said, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I said, okay, this one time we'll use it, and then we'll work on Within 2 days, she had a hot spot.
What is a hot spot?
A hot spot's a red, inflamed, where the skin falls off, and it's red and raw and painful.
Oh.
And I mean, she had never had one before. I mean, this was not a coincidence. And so, we got rid of that, and obviously I was never going to use that again. And those have also been, right now, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has, for the year 2009, 44,000 adverse reactions to these flea and tick products.
Wow.
That have been reported. Those are the reported ones.
Right.
Now, I did not report, for instance, mine. I didn't. And even if I did, even if I told the vet, she wouldn't necessarily have made a report
Right.
about it. So those are the reported ones. So those are, you
So
know.
what can we do instead?
It's very difficult. There are products out there that do repel. I think you've got somebody coming on who'll be talking about her particular product, which we carry, by the way. And
So there's
it's-
herbal products that you can use to spray
Yeah.
on?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you spray it
Both spray the
topically
environment and the animal itself.
as a repellent, so you would have to keep applying it?
Right, but usually they last. It's not like continuous daily
Yeah.
thing. Like once you spray it, and sometimes dogs don't like sprays, and cats, of course, would detest a spray. So you would spray it on maybe a piece of fabric or something, and just rub it on. They all come with with directions. But again, keeping them healthy is
Yeah, so a good diet
a-
and good strong immune system is going to
Yes.
be
the bugs don't like healthy animals.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, they
And that's
honestly
true of
don't.
plants as well. So
They don't. I have a friend who has, and there is another thing that people use. I've done it somewhat, but not totally, is garlic and brewer's yeast. I have a friend who has 7 Yorkshire Terriers and 2 mini poodles. And these dogs are all obedience trained, agility, they do agility work, they go to dog shows, they go constantly, and she has never had a flea.
So
So she absolutely swears by that, and I certainly wouldn't change it for her. You're
I know
doing
that
it's
I
working.
buy a garlic preparation, a herbal preparation, and it's
Uh-huh.
very concentrated. I just dilute it and then put a little bit on the cat food every day, just because if the garlic is in the system,
Right.
it's going to be unfriendly.
And
for
it doesn't work overnight because it's not, like these spot-on things,
Yeah.
and within a couple of days they're supposed to be covered. This you have to start, and you have to give it several months to actually be in the system, I would assume, so that the body is exuding
Yes.
garlic,
Right.
odor, and the bugs don't like it.
Dolores, we just have a few minutes left, and there was
Okay.
one thing that I noticed on your notes that, although it's at the bottom, say of that page on the page of the fuzzy facts, it's probably one of the most important things, and that's
This
the
one?
love.
Yes.
Would you have any comments about that as we close?
Well, I think, and I think I actually, let me read the statement, because this is a paper that I made to hand out to people when I lost my Cocker Spaniel. My heart was so broken, and he told me that he had, actually what you see him on, he's got a little, he's in a animal
Show it to the
control,
camera.
he's in an animal control truck, because they're friends of mine, and he has a little, because this was near Halloween, he has a little prison uniform, costume, and we put him in the truck. So I printed all of this that I hand out to people, and one of the last things Fuzzy wanted me to say was that loving your pet means learning as much as possible to keep them as healthy as possible. And as I said, my heart is broken because I did not learn sooner about some of the things that harmed my Fuzzy, and so he wants us to help as many people as can. So loving them isn't just, and loving them isn't just feeding them. It isn't always a treat or more food.
Right.
It's knowing what the best care is for them, and that's my motto.
Dolores, thank you so much for joining
My
us
pleasure.
on Living Healthy.
My pleasure.
Taking care of our pets in a holistic way is so important, just as taking care of ourselves, because there's so much love involved.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us again on Living Healthy. We've been talking to Dolores Caton, owner of Down to Earth Natural Foods in New Bedford. She's been educating us on holistic pet care. My name is Jackie Bell. We look forward to seeing you again next time.